Hey guys, this is Victor, and today I want to talk about distance and iTeraCare. Distance matters. So we want to know how to use the device properly, right? We want to make sure we're using it the right way. We want to consider safety. We also want to consider optimal use, right? What's the best way to use it? Which is sometimes maybe different than the safest way to use it, right? There are different things to consider when you're talking about safety or optimal use. And then what about kids? There are now, again, different things to consider when we're using it with kids. And also the part of the body that you're using it on. What parts should you use it on? Are there cautions that you should take? What is optimal? And then what about the type of device you have? Do you have a Model 1, a Model 2 Classic? Do you have a Premium or a Pro? There are some differences in these because the amount of heat that comes out of them is different. They have different settings. So we want to make sure that no matter which device you have, and no matter what your age, that you know how to use it properly and safely, okay? And so we have to consider the terahertz gap frequency that supposedly is generated from this device. And we have to consider the heat. Now, the heat is easy for you to feel, right? So it's very easy for you to judge. But the terahertz gap frequency, you can't feel at all. And I've already done several videos on this issue of distance because there's a lot of really silly stuff out there. And if you're hearing people tell you that distance doesn't matter and you're still going to get all the benefits, this is false. Okay? You've got to be within a certain distance. Just as you can feel the heat fall off, that terahertz gap frequency, that radiation will also fall off after a certain distance, right? And of course, it has to for safety reasons too. It has its FCC certification, and so it is a safe device when used properly, just like anything else, right? So again, distance matters, and we want to talk about why. Now, there is an exception when distance doesn't matter. I talked about the heat and the terahertz gap frequency, but there is another thing that this device provides and that we can use for radionics, which is the distance type of healing. And I'm talking about the crystal energy, right? So, or the scalar energy or the quantum energy. We have a lot of different words for this. So that can have an impact over distance. And that also aligns with your intention. So your intention is also important. So you want to think good thoughts. You can use mantras, whatever. It's just adding another element of healing to this device. And so in this case, we can like structure water and we can have an impact on the physical body across any distance. Distance doesn't matter. But please understand that is only one element, and the structuring that takes place from the crystal energy using radionics is not the same as structuring that takes place from the terahertz gap frequency. It is not only structure of the water, but the energy that you are imbuing into the water. Both things are very important. So if you want the optimal, most powerful impact of this device, you must know the appropriate distance to use it at. And basically, this device is meant to be used within arm's length so that you're doing it yourself on your own body or you're doing it to someone else. Now, if you have a cool setting, like if you have a Pro, the Pro can work with no heat. It just blows cool air or room temperature air through the crystal. The old classic Model 1 setting 2 was also pretty cool. So we can get pretty close with an inch or two to the body. Another very important thing to consider, the device should always be moving, right? So you'll see a lot of videos out there where people are doing this and the device is moving. Even when you're just doing it on your hand or your foot, just a little motion. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy, just a little motion. And again, you find the distance that is comfortable for you. Don't allow yourself to feel pain from the heat. Certainly don't burn your skin if you're using hotter settings on the device. And so that's going to be particular to each device. On the classic models, both the 1.0 and 2.0, setting number 2 is the coolest. but can still be pretty hot. And especially with the Model 2, that's hotter than the Model 1. So you have to be more careful. You probably need more distance with the Model 2. Now, this is why you'll notice in some of my earlier videos, my very first videos in talking about the Classic 1, I spoke more about keeping the device very close. And then the Model 2 came out, and most people really could not do that. We had to keep it at a greater distance. Okay, now everybody's a little bit different, so you focus on what's comfortable for you. Now, when dealing with children, you can use the device on children, but please understand that children do not always give proper feedback when they're experiencing pain or discomfort. They might not notice it. So be especially careful if you're going to use this device with kids, and keep it at more of a distance from the children. Don't burn their skin or overheat the body. For this reason too, with children, I'm not comfortable with the idea of doing it on the head. Again, unless you have a pro version or you really know what you're doing, you're keeping the heat away from the brain. You don't want to be overheating the brain. It's not great. Another thing I want to talk about is this idea of blowing the device into your mouth, or blowing it up your nose, or blowing it into the ear. You do not need to blow this directly into any of those areas. And you do not want to do that, because that's another safety issue. You can be drying out the sinuses, the mouth, the throat. You can be blowing things in there. In the ear, you can be putting unnecessary pressure on the drum. You don't need to do that. You're not blowing the frequency, right? You'll feel the heat. So when you blow around the areas, and be careful not to dry things out or blow into orifices. This is just an unnecessary risk. So think about which device you have. Think about what you're trying to accomplish, right? You want to have good intention. And then, of course, the part of the body you're blowing on is important. We have a lot of guidance out there. You basically want to hit the chakras and the meridians, the hands, the feet, all the joints, the lymph nodes, right? And heat can be really good. So a lot of people love the heat, especially up and down the spine if you have someone to do that for you. And the device, again, does get really hot, and heat can be a great therapy. As we know, we have many different great heat therapies. So I'm not against using the heat of the iTeraCare device. I just want you to be careful and use it in a very safe manner, because it's not necessary to burn yourself and go crazy with it. And again, you also don't want to go too far away. So you want to, it should be that you could use it on yourself, right? It's designed to be used on yourself. Much easier and nicer if someone else can do it for you, though, of course, because they can get the back for you. They can go up and down the spine. So anyway, I think I covered all the concerns that I wanted to cover, because I get a lot of questions, and I see a lot of silly videos about distance not mattering, doing it across the room. And I have other videos that get into that more technically. In this video, I wanted to do just kind of a comprehensive one on how to properly use it, what distances should we be using, and where should we be pointing it, and how. And also, again, with the kids, I was a little bit concerned because people often have questions about children, and you want to be especially careful with children. And don't forget to use this device on your water and all other liquids. And I have videos on that too, if you need to dive into that in more detail. You want to structure and energize your water and other beverages. And again, you want to do that. Distance, again, is also important. If you can be close, then you do it close. Now, if you, for some reason, cannot have your iTeraCare device with you, then okay, it's great to use like radionics, this idea of the distance healing, because at least you can get some benefit, but it's not going to be nearly as powerful as using the device up close. And I don't mean too close. All right, that's it for now. I hope this helps. I hope it answers some of your questions, and I hope it helps you to use the device more effectively and more safely. Thank you for watching.